I want you to picture a wedding, but not the highly curated Instagram version. I want you to picture the actual reality of it.
Oh, yeah. The spreadsheets.
Exactly. The spreadsheet with like 300 rows. The arguments about whether to serve chicken or fish. The absolute panic when the florist says they're out of peonies.
Right.
And just that really specific high-frequency anxiety about the weather. It's supposed to be the happiest day of your life, but usually, I mean, the lead-up just feels like a military operation gone wrong.
It really is a pressure cooker. We obsess over the external details because we want the union to look perfect to everyone else. But often, the internal state of the people actually getting married is, well, it's chaotic.
Yeah, it's totally chaotic. We focus on the event, not the state of mind. But today we're doing a deep dive into a source text that kind of flips that entire script.
Yeah.
We're looking at a wedding where the venue isn't a hotel ballroom, it's the human body.
Yes.
And the preparation isn't about table settings. It's about this really radical internal inventory.
That is a fantastic way to frame it. So we are looking at a specific hymn today, a chant from Raag Soohee, which was composed by Guru Ram Das Ji. Now, in the Sikh tradition, Raag Soohee is the musical measure of joy.
Which makes sense for a wedding.
Exactly. It's often sung at weddings. But the marriage described here is the ultimate metaphor. It's the journey of the soul bride who is seeking union with the divine husband.
And before we get, too abstract and floaty with terms like divine union, I really want to ground this because when I was reading through this text, I was struck by how businesslike it starts.
It really does.
It doesn't start with romance at all. It starts with a transaction.
It does. And I think that's what makes this text so incredibly practical. It acknowledges that you can't just snap your fingers and be enlightened or, married to the divine. You have to do business with yourself first.
Right. So the text opens with this plea to meet the true guru, the primal being. But then the narrator, who is speaking as this bride-to-be, makes a really weird offer. She says, discarding my faults and sins, I would chant the Lord's glorious praises. But the translation you highlighted for me, it actually says she wants to sell her faults.
Yes, the word used there is vikana, which literally means to sell. I will sell my faults.
Okay, hold on, because that stops me right in my tracks. Selling faults. That sounds incredibly capitalistic for a spiritual text. Usually I think of my faults, my anger, my anxiety, my bad habits as this heavy baggage I'm just stuck with. Or maybe something I need to apologize for.
Right, something to feel guilty about.
Exactly. But selling them. Who is buying them? And why would they even want them?
It is a really jarring image at first glance. But if you think about the psychology of a sale, when you sell something, you are exchanging it. You are giving up possession of one thing to acquire another. So Guru Ram Das Ji is framing spiritual growth not as suppressing your bad side, but as an active exchange. You trade the avagyan, which are the faults, to purchase gun, the virtues.
So it's literally an inventory swap.
Precisely. You can't just create a vacuum in your mind. You can't just say, well, I'm going to stop being angry and then leave a gaping hole there. You have to replace the anger with something else.
Because otherwise the anger just comes right back.
Exactly. The text says, I will sell my faults, and in exchange, I will chant virtues. You are emptying the warehouse of the negative so you can stock it with the positive.
Okay, I actually really like that. It makes it feel less like a moral failing and more like logistics. But how does this trade actually happen? I mean, I can't just walk to a pawn shop and slap my judgmental nature on the counter. What is the actual mechanism?
The mechanism is focus. The text provides a very clear method. It says, I meditate on the name. Continually, I chant the word of the Guru's Bani.
Naam and Gurbani, we see these terms a lot. And for the listener who might treat these as just sort of standard religious buzzwords, let's unpack what that actually means in this specific context. Is it just reading a book?
It's far more visceral than that. Naam refers to the name, or the core identifier of the divine reality, and Gurbani refers to the Guru's word, or wisdom. But notice the sensory language the text uses here.
It says she chants it.
Yes, chanting or vibrating this wisdom. It implies that by filling your mind with this specific frequency of truth, you are physically displacing the faults. You're crowding them out of your system.
So if my brain is completely full of the name, there's literally no shelf space left for the ego.
Exactly. And that brings us to the broker of this deal. The text introduces the guru. Now, in this wedding metaphor, the guru isn't just a teacher standing at a blackboard. The guru is the matchmaker.
The text calls him the father, right?
Yes. It says, my father, the guru, has come to engage me in marriage to her husband, Lord. In the cultural context of that era, the father or the mediator arranges the alliance. Here, the true guru is the essential mediator who says, okay, you want this cosmic union, let's get you ready for it.
And the readiness involves a trousseau. The bride needs to be dressed for the wedding, but she's not putting on silk or gold.
No, the embellishments are entirely internal. The text says she's embellished with truth and contentment, sat and santok, and bao, which is love.
Embellished with contentment. That's a really beautiful phrase. But it's also really hard, I think. In a modern context, contentment kind of sounds like settling. Like, oh, I guess this is good enough. But here it's being presented as a jewel, as something that makes you attractive to the divine.
Because spiritual contentment isn't passivity, it's santok. It means being free from that desperate, clawing need for more that usually drives our everyday lives.
That constant hustle.
Right. When you wear contentment, you aren't needy, you are whole. And that wholeness is exactly what allows the true union to happen. The guru is essentially helping the bride put on these specific qualities so she can stand face to face with the divine.
So we've made the trade. We've sold the false. We've got the virtues. The matchmaker is setting things up. Now I want to talk about how this actually feels, because the text makes a pivot to the physical body that I found really surprising.
The cozy bed.
Yes, the cozy bed. The line is, the bed of my body has become cozy and beautiful. Sukhali. Now, wait a minute. Most religious texts I've encountered, especially ancient ones, tend to be a bit harsh on the body. You know, the flesh is weak, deny the body, sleep on a rock to prove how holy you are. But here, the body is comfortable.
It's a profound shift in perspective, isn't it? Guru Ram Das Ji is telling us that spiritual discipline doesn't mean torturing the vessel, it means cleaning it. When you trade those faults for virtues, the physical result is sahaj.
Sahaj,
Yeah.
which is like a state of natural ease, right?
Yes, celestial peace. Sahaj is the direct opposite of struggle. Think about how exhausting it is to be angry all the time, or how physically draining it is to be jealous or deceitful. It creates tension in your muscles. It floods your system with cortisol.
Oh, absolutely. Holding a grudge is a full-body workout.
Exactly. So the text says, the disease of egotism is gone. The hamai is cured. And because that mental disease is eradicated, the text explicitly says, my body has become healthy and free of disease. It's linking the spiritual state directly to physical and mental well-being. The bed of the body becomes cozy because you aren't fighting yourself anymore. You can finally just rest in your own skin.
That is such a healthier way to look at spirituality. It's not about escaping the body at all. It's about making the body a nice place to live.
And not just a nice place for you. There's a fascinating line about the 5 meeting and becoming adorned.
A 5. You mean the 5 thieves. Like lust, anger, greed, attachment, ego.
Usually, yes, they are viewed as the thieves breaking into your house to steal your peace. But here, notice the shift in the language. They aren't destroyed, they are adorned.
Whoa! So we don't kill the thieves.
You transform them. This is the real nuance of the Sikh perspective. You don't annihilate your senses or your human drives, you redirect them. When the 5 are adorned with the spiritual wisdom, they stop robbing you and they start serving the wedding.
That makes so much sense.
Passion becomes devotion. Attachment becomes love for the divine. They become honored guests at the wedding rather than crashers.
That's a total game changer. It's integration, not suppression.
Yeah.
But the text does get specific about some things leaving permanently.
Yeah.
It says anger and attachment run away.
Yes, anger and attachment have left my body and run away. It implies they simply cannot coexist with the sweetness of Gurbani. If you fill a room with light, darkness doesn't have a choice. It has to leave. It creates an absolute boundary.
Okay, so that's the soul bride. She's happy, she's cozy, she's adorned with truth. But the text doesn't just leave us there. It cuts away to the other side of the tracks. The counterexample. The manmukh.
The self-willed, the one who follows their own ego instead of the guru's wisdom.
And the contrast is brutal. If the bride is resting in a cozy bed, where is the manmukh?
The menmukh is in Ajhar, the wilderness, the desolate, completely pathless place.
And the description of that place, I want to bring this up because it felt incredibly modern to me. It says the manmukh is bumped and pushed.
Each and every moment she is bumped and pushed.
That doesn't sound like a quiet walk in the woods. That sounds like being in a crowded subway station at rush hour. Or honestly, it sounds like modern burnout, just constantly reacting to things, pinged by an email, bumped by a notification, pushed by a deadline.
That is a perfect analogy for it. The wilderness here isn't a quiet, empty forest. It's chaos. To be a manmukh means you have no internal center. You have no gravity of your own. So every single external force knocks you off balance. You are essentially a pinball.
A pinball. That's exactly it, bouncing from one crisis to the next.
The text says she practices fraud and falsehood, and because of that cycle, she suffers terrible pain. The pain comes from that constant friction. If you are dealing only in falsehood, trying to be someone you aren't, chasing external validations that don't last, you are constantly grinding against reality. You are being bumped and pushed by your own unmanaged desires.
It's exhausting just hearing about it. The text says they are separated far away from the mansion of his presence. It sounds incredibly lonely.
It is the ultimate state of separation. The manmek is burning with desire. The text literally says she burns, but she is never satisfied.
And I think this is a crucial point. The text doesn't just leave the manmuk in the dumpster, right? It's not a permanent condemnation to hell.
No, not at all. And this is where the grace of the text really shines. It says God, the great giver, shows his mercy and leads her to meet the true guru.
So even the pinball can be caught.
Even the pinball. The text mentions beings who have been separated for countless incarnations. It implies that no one is truly lost forever. The wilderness is just a temporary state until you find the mediator, the guru, who can bring you back to the path of union.
Okay, so we've seen the preparation. We've seen the alternative, the chaotic wilderness. Now, let's get to the main event, the climax. The bride is ready. The house is clean. She's wearing contentment. Where is the actual ceremony?
Well, this is where the text throws a bit of a curveball. Think about a traditional cultural context. What's the most important thing you need before a wedding can happen?
The date.
The auspicious date. You call the astrologers, you get the pandits. They open the almanacs to calculate the exact perfect alignment of the stars. You don't make a move until Mars aligns with Venus or whatever the charts say.
Right. You need the cosmic green light before you book the caterer. And the text sets this scene up perfectly. It says, the pandits and astrologers have come to sit and consult the almanacs.
It sets it up, and then it completely subverts the entire tradition.
It really does. It basically says, never mind all that.
Essentially, yes. It says, the virtuous and wise men sat down and decided to perform the marriage immediately.
Immediately. They just fired the astrologers.
They overruled the stars entirely. This is a massive theological statement. Guru Ram Das Ji is saying that you don't need to wait for the physical universe to give you permission to unite with the divine. You don't need a horoscope. When the Gurmukhs, the wise, virtue-oriented people, gather and chant the wisdom, that creates the auspicious moment.
So the right time isn't something you find on a calendar. It's something you create.
It is created by your internal intent and by the company of the wise. The text describes the ecstasy of it. It says, the bride's mind vibrates with bliss when she hears that her friend is coming. The realization of God is the event itself. It cuts through all the ritualistic red tape and star charts.
I love that so much. It's empowering. It puts the agency entirely back in the hands of the seeker. Now let's talk about the groom. Because if the bride has done all this intense work, selling her faults, buying virtues, changing her whole internal state, who is she actually meeting at the altar?
This is hands down my favorite part of the entire hymn. The unique descriptions of the divine husband are incredibly specific and touching. First, he is described as agam agochar, inaccessible and unfathomable.
Which is kind of the standard God is big and scary and far away description we're used to.
Right, it establishes the vastness. But then, in the exact same breath, the text drops two descriptions that completely change the temperature of the room.
Forever young.
Sad Nabaten, always new, always fresh.
Forever young. I mean, it sounds like a Bob Dylan song, but here it suggests that this relationship never ages. It's not a dusty, ancient tradition that you just repeat by rote. It feels new every single time you engage with it.
Exactly. It completely contradicts the idea of a stagnant old religion. The divine is dynamic. But the second phrase, that's the one that really gets to the heart of it. Bal Sakai.
Best friend from her earliest childhood.
Just let that sink in for a second. The groom isn't a king you have to bow down to in terror. He isn't a distant judge reading your file of sins. He is your childhood friend.
That completely reframes the whole concept of a spiritual wedding. It's not an intimidating transaction anymore. It's a reunion.
It is a profound homecoming. Think about a childhood friend. That's someone who knew you before you had a job, before you had a reputation, before you built up all these defensive wall and faults. They know the real you.
So all this work we talked about, the selling of faults, the cleaning the internal house, it's not to impress a stranger. It's to clear away the junk so you can recognize the friend who has been there all along.
Precisely. The result of the wedding is eternal. The text says, I have obtained my best friend, the ocean of virtue, and I shall never be separated from him again. The separation was just an illusion caused by the wilderness of the ego. Once that ego is gone, you realize he was always right there. He was the Bal Sakai.
That is surprisingly emotional. It turns the whole spiritual quest narrative completely on its head. You aren't climbing a brutal mountain to find God. You're just waking up to the friend sitting next to you.
And that's exactly why the bed is cozy. Because you aren't alone anymore. The anxiety of the manmuk, that constant bumping and pushing, it stops. Because you have finally anchored yourself in that oldest, deepest relationship.
So if we pull back and look at this whole deep dive, we started with a wedding, but we ended up with something much more internal.
We ended up with a roadmap for mental and spiritual health. The text is telling us very clearly, stop hoarding your faults, trade them in, use the sweetness of wisdom to displace the bitterness of ego. Don't worry about the astrologers or the external rituals. Just make your heart a place where truth and contentment can actually live.
And when you do that, the childhood friend shows up. Or rather, you finally see him.
You finally see him, and you realize he is Sad Navatan, forever new.
So here is a thought for you to take with you today. We usually treat our faults, our anger, our fear, our jealousy as these dark secrets to be hidden. We lock them in the basement and hope nobody sees them. But what if you looked at them like inventory? What if you actively tried to sell them today? How might changing your view of the divine from a distant judge to an intimate, ageless friend change your entire approach to discarding those faults? What virtues would you buy in exchange?
And ask yourself, is your mind a wilderness where you're getting bumped and pushed by every single notification? Or is it a cozy bed?
If it's the wilderness, maybe it's time to call the matchmaker. Thank you for taking this deep dive into Raag Soohee with us today.
Keep the wisdom sweet.
See you next time.